Welcome back to our CompTIA SecurityX CAS-005 series. In this episode, we're focusing on Objective 2.5.2, securely deploying serverless workloads, functions, and resources, including API security and the differences between cloud-managed and customer-managed services. Let's break it down into three core areas: serverless security, API protection, and cloud versus customer-managed controls. First, let's understand what serverless computing means. Serverless platforms like AWS Lambda, Azure Functions, and Google Cloud Functions let you run code without provisioning or managing servers. The cloud provider handles infrastructure while you focus on application logic. However, security remains your responsibility in many aspects. To securely deploy serverless functions, apply the principle of least privilege when assigning roles or permissions. A Lambda function should only have access to the resources it actually needs. Protect environment variables by encrypting them or using a service like AWS Secrets Manager or Azure Key Vault. Set execution timeouts and memory limits to prevent overuse or abuse. For example, if a Lambda function processes image uploads from an S3 bucket, it should have read-only access to that specific bucket and nothing more. Timeouts ensure that if the function hangs, it doesn't consume resources indefinitely. Now, let's move into API security, one of the most critical topics in cloud deployments. There are three pillars to API security: authorization, logging, and rate limiting. First, authorization controls what an API user or system is allowed to do. Common methods include OAuth 2.0, JWT tokens, or IAM-based access controls. For example, a user with a read-only JWT token should not be able to send a post or delete request. This limits exposure to unauthorized changes. Second, we have logging. Logging every API request, including failed authentication attempts, allows for security auditing, incident response, and compliance tracking. Use built-in tools like AWS CloudTrail or Azure Monitor, or route logs into a central SIEM. Third is rate limiting. Rate limiting helps you prevent abuse and denial of service attacks. API gateways can throttle requests to, say, 100 calls per minute per user. Tools like AWS API Gateway or Azure API Management support this natively. A practical example would be limiting access to a public-facing API that returns stock prices. If someone tries to flood it with requests, they get automatically blocked after hitting the limit. Let's now talk about cloud-managed versus customer-managed services. Starting with encryption keys, we can categorize them into two types. Cloud-managed keys are maintained and rotated by the provider. Customer-managed keys, often called CMKs, give you full control over lifecycle management, access policies, and rotation schedules. For example, storing sensitive healthcare data in Amazon S3 using customer-managed KMS keys lets you meet HIPAA or GDPR requirements, while giving you full control over who can decrypt the data. Next, let's look at license management. Cloud providers often offer two options. One is BYOL, or bring your own license, where you use existing software licenses. The other is provider-managed licensing, where the licensing is bundled into the service cost. BYOL gives you more flexibility and may reduce cost if you already have enterprise licenses. But cloud-managed licenses simplify operations, especially at scale. For instance, if you're deploying SQL Server on AWS EC2, you can either use your own license or choose to have AWS manage it, billing you hourly for the database engine. In summary, for CAS 005 Objective 2.5.2, remember these key takeaways. Serverless workloads require careful permission controls and secrets management. APIs must be protected through proper authorization, detailed logging, and rate limiting. Understand when to use cloud-managed services for convenience, and when customer-managed options are better for compliance and control.